the way up above the Arctic Circle, the jumping off point to go to the North Cape. Honningsvag is a fishing city, and this, believe it or not, is a giant rack with drying fish heads. I don't know what in the world they use fish heads for, but fishing seems to be the primary means of earning a living up here. There are 7 fishing villages, and they process their own fish. Our guide said some of these fish they send to China, and then, in order to have fish, buy them back from China. He said it was cheaper that way than developing their own processing plants. Pretty amazing piece of work to me. This is the rack that they dry the fish heads on. They have a bunch of these racks. They're strung out. I suppose they dry rapidly because we're in the land of the midnight sun. It's daylight 24/7 up here. But the fish heads, they have a screen on them to protect them from birds or larger animals, but nothing protects them from flies and bugs and whatever. So these are pretty grim-looking fish heads in there, and they've been out in the rain and the elements, and they're sort of beat to hell. And you wonder what in the world can you use these old buggy, beat-up fish heads for? It's a horrendous smell. I suppose maybe they grind them up and put them in animal food or something. It's hard for me to imagine, but someone went to a lot of trouble to hang them up on these racks. This is the actual North Cape. As you can see, it's a promontory, extends out into the sea. There's a largish flat area on top, and the cliff drops down over 1,000 feet. Up on the top up there is a little round thing. It's some kind of a piece of statuary. The other figures you can see up there are people. It gives you some sense of the perspective. Those are people walking around up there. It's a long way up, and it's a very, very pretty thing, very dramatic. They tell us that in the old days, for super adventurous travelers, the North Cape was a prized place to have visited. And it took sort of very wealthy people to come out here. And it's the Prince of Wales, and there was some guy, the King of Siam came and all that, toward the end of the 19th century. And they would come and they would be rown out from Honningsvag. They'd row them out here to this cape, and then they would go ashore, and the guides would tie ropes around them and haul them up to the top. There are some pictures of them, and the men are wearing 3-piece suits and top hats, and the women have corsets and long gowns, and the guides are struggling to get these people up a 1,000-foot cliff, if you can imagine. You had to really want to get up there to go up dressed in those clothes in those days. We saw pictures of this in the winter, and in the winter it's windswept and frozen in with ice. It's a very harsh, windy place. They say this day we were here was one of the best they've ever seen. We just had a crisp breeze and bright sun, and just a lovely, lovely, gentle day to see the whole thing and walk around. They have a few museums and little shops and stuff, but frankly, once you get by the incredible beauty, there's not much else.
But I'm not sure. I don't know. But he started from Stabroek. Yeah, he started from Stabroek. It's way up north.
This is a view looking off the west side of the North Cape. You can walk around up there on the top of that plateau up there, and this is gazing off the west side. It too, of course, is 1,000 feet down. It's a little hard to judge the distance from this perspective, but you can see how clear it is. and how calm the water is. All these fjords, of course, are landlocked in a relatively narrow space, so there's no surge, there are no waves, and the shores are all solid rock, as you can see, and that means without waves and without any dirt or anything, the water is incredibly clear. You can just see deep, deep down into this frigid water. It's a really pretty place, very fishy.
Making a movie now?
As you might imagine, in a place where the primary occupation is fishing, they're very proud of their fish. They passed around to those of us on the bus that went out to the North Cape this photograph of what they said is the largest halibut ever caught on a rod and reel. It was caught up here in the North Cape area, and it weighed over 600 pounds. That's a very big halibut. They say the ones that are taken commercially are much larger and get up close to 1,000 pounds occasionally. They're very, as I say, they're very proud of their fishing, and they catch pollock, haddock, and halibut, as well as giant king crabs. They don't take any shrimp or lobster up here, we're told. But it's a very fishy place. You can see pollock chasing bait to the surface. You can see the bait jumping as the pollock are feeding on them from down below when the water's real calm, which it often is out in these fjords. I mentioned earlier that we were up in the land of the midnight sun. Well, we certainly are. This morning I happened to wake up and I looked at the clock and it said 2:12 or something, and I opened the blinds and this is what I saw. I held the clock up to prove what time it was. It's 2:15 in the morning, and it's as bright as the afternoon. It is truly incredible. They get sun 24/7 up here. The interesting thing is they have incredible native growth in the flora. The wildflowers and the grasses and things grow like crazy because they've just had a period of long rain and moisture, and now they have a 24-hour day growing season. The wildflowers are just staggering. I've got a little film I took of this same morning, a few moments after this picture was taken. Well, this is the film. That's kind of interesting. Of the land of the midnight sun picture, and as you can see, this was taken about 2:17 in the morning. It's quite light out there. Doesn't seem to get any darker, although it does get lighter around midday, 3-4 o'clock. For those of you who were like me and find yourself a little geographically challenged, here's a map of the top of Norway. You can see Honningsvag is at the very top. It's actually an island in that there's a little waterway that separates it from the southern portion of Norway. I took this on the television in our room, and then this is just a shot out the window. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning here, so we're still enjoying that midnight sun.